Hello everyone, RetroCon here. History, his story. As we enter an era of rising political tensions, progressively destabilizing wars, dwindling resources, and an increasingly multipolar world, the words of George Santayana have become increasingly prophetic. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Fortunately for those of us who live in the current year, functional attention spans are no longer prerequisites to learning our past. Age of Empires 2 corrects our mistakes by reminding us of a simpler time when bureaucracy was simple and choices could be made quickly. Back when we let God choose our leaders for us through divine right, and nepotism ensured that only those favored by God would continue ruling. If you're a monarchist, then this is the game for you, and you will love it. If you're not, well, you'll quickly realize the errors of your ways. I first ran into this series back when video games came in boxes, had comprehensive manuals, and lived on CDs. I remember being taken by my parents to the nearby store, the kind of store where videos sold at inexplicable discounts and had box covers in languages other than English. My parents, in their attempt to placate my adolescent ramblings, picked a seemingly random, real-time strategy game that would forever change my young, primitive brain. Age of Empires 2, a game that is objectively older than most of my viewers, is a deep and nuanced strategy experience. Your objective? Explore your surrounding area, collect finite resources, grow your population, expand your city, assemble an army, and exterminate from existence any civilization that does not bend the knee. Just the kind of experience that is sure to mend the wounds of humanity. Developed by Ensemble Studios and released back in 1999, Age of Empires 2 has been around for quite a while. It's been re-released in high definition and again later in definitive edition, probably whenever executives at Microsoft Studio needed to boost their numbers for their shareholders. It has had a bit of a renaissance as of late, and I found myself drawn to the pixelated game, getting to relive my bright and cheery childhood as a now jaded and tired adult. Age of Empires 2 is a game that focuses heavily on historical accuracy. With over 40 civilizations to play, you can fulfill your childhood fantasies of leading the Mongols into China to amass an army of concubines. You can relive the French dream of kicking the Anglos out of the mainland. Alternatively, you can answer that age-old question on whether a samurai is actually stronger than a knight, or how many humans it takes to kill a bear. The answer? It depends. Speaking of humans, villagers are the backbone of any civilization. As such, they are among the most abused units in the game. From the moment of their inception, your villagers will fight for their survival. When they're not busy being killed by wild animals or marauding armies, they are sent to toil away their lives in the fields, to farm for food, cut trees, or mine resources. The game even has a built-in button to ensure your villagers never rest and always work. There are many units in Age of Empires. Each civilization has access to one or two unique units. The Britons get the longbows, the Chinese get semi-automatic crossbows, the Portuguese get these things, and the Tatars get kamikaze camels. All civilizations have access to 4 types of shared units: infantry, ranged, cavalry, and siege units. This sets up a complex rock, paper, scissors paradigm where some units counter others. Scholars generally agree that there are only 2 ways to play this game. You can carefully, methodically place your buildings to form visually coherent and appealing cities. Or you can just go full ADHD and spam buildings everywhere to maximize your APM. Buildings all serve vital functions in your civilization. Markets, for example, are necessary to trade, and blacksmiths provide critical upgrades. All roads lead to war. Well, except this one. In Age of Empires, wars aren't a question of why or how, but rather of when and where. You're going to need an army, and an army requires resources. Units will typically require some combination of food, wood, and some gold. There are a few that don't require gold, and those are called trash units for a reason. Victory, therefore, is a question of who can collect the most gold and utilize it most efficiently. So, how do you grow an economy to sustain your war machine? Well, the answer is simple actually. Butcher every animal. Cut down entire forests. Drain the sea of life. And strip the land of its ores. Amass a pile of resources and send in wave after wave of soldiers to grind down your opposition. If you're running out of a certain resource, utilize the market to continue your full-on assault. Do this until they no longer have children to send to the front lines and their entire economy collapses. That is when you will win. Depending on the version of Age of Empires 2 you play, the visuals will differ significantly. You can try to find and play the original out-of-the-box version, quickly realize it has aged poorly, and have an existential crisis. Alternatively, you can play the HD version, which is illegible at any resolution greater than 1280 by 720. Your best bet, therefore, is to play the definitive edition that will save you from having your rose-tinted glasses shattered. Like most games that define an era, Age of Empires 2 has always had a distinct look and feel that has been preserved throughout the decades, which, in our modern society of retcons and re-releases, is actually an accomplishment in and of itself. Embrace the unique pixelated look that has been preserved throughout the ages. There's quite nothing like watching the monuments of humanity collapse before your eyes. It satiates my primal urge to destroy. The audio is also impressive. The sounds of villagers coming into existence, or the Wololo of some monk somewhere making a unit commit desertion and treason in a matter of seconds are some of the most iconic sounds in video game history. Likewise, the rest of the audio is also fantastic. Listening to elephants trampling your soldiers or your spearmen taking away at each other is incredibly memorable. The soundtracks are also iconic, and just like the other assets in this game, have been improved and enhanced across the editions. If you've played Age of Empires 2 at any point in your life, then this song should trigger some nostalgia. While there's nothing here that I would listen to in my free time, it is still some of the most memorable music in my life. And by God, it will be yours as well if I can help it. There are many ways to play Age of Empires 2. You can go single player and fight campaigns or skirmishes against AI, or you can go multiplayer and fight against real players. You can also do this thing called cooperating. It's okay. Now, I have a confession to make. I'm not very good at this game. That's why I stuck around and played through the various campaigns before building up the confidence to play multiplayer. The campaigns are a series of scenarios, each centered around a single civilization at a certain point in time and space. Go on a righteous crusade against the infidels as the Teutons in the Barbarossa campaign. Massacre the Chinese as the Mongols in the Genghis Khan campaign. Or meet the no doubt friendly conquistadors as the Aztecs in the Montezuma campaign. Each campaign is a unique experience and will entertain you for hours. An example of what a campaign would look like would be the Prithviraj campaign, or more accurately, the campaign of one of the greatest superpowers that will ever exist. You see, before Indian TikTok videos, before Narendra Modi, hell, even before Bollywood, there existed the Gurjaras, a race of ascended Proto-Indians that had colonized the stars. The notion of armor was of no concern to the Gurjara because iron tools simply could not penetrate their skin. The campaign begins with an accurate depiction of the Chauhan clan, a clan born from the loins of a god, created to battle demonic entities known as Rakshasas. we follow the young king Prithviraj, who has just been challenged by his cousin Nagarjan for rule of the clan. You establish a foothold in a settlement nearby and can take one of two routes. You can either kill your cousin or capture the relics to unite. Actually, who cares? The choice is obvious. After killing our cousin, we next see our absolute unit of a king single-handedly hunting a tiger. After killing said tiger, he sets the simple task of eliminating the princes of the land. Being in the middle of everything is of no consequence, and the princes stand no chance against your mass of horses and elephants. These conquests led to our Chad king encountering the bewitching princess Sanyogita, daughter of Jayachandra, a powerful king of a nearby clan. Jayachandra refuses to be cucked out of a daughter, so he hosts a Smayamvara, a festival to find a partner for his daughter. All the royalty of India are invited except for our king. So he does what any reasonable man smitten with love does, and forces his way to the party with an army, killing anyone who stands in his way. Sanyogita, unable to resist this masculine energy, approves the murder of the men entrusted to defend her and proceeds to marry him. Jayachandra is understandably pissed off over this stunt and makes a pact with the mortal enemy of India, an Afghan by the name of Muhammad Ghori, to kill our young king. Ghori sends in his primitive army of demons and orcs against the highly advanced Proto-Indians. Prithviraj, of course, being merciful, set out not to destroy the armies themselves, but the holy relics that motivate them. An easy task, and upon their destruction, the morale of the army collapses, and they retreat. Muhammad Ghori is not finished, however, and prepares for a full invasion of the realm. Prithviraj sets out to defend against this onslaught. He rallies the Rajas of the land by having Chand Bordai, our narrator, read them the poem that he's written of the king's deeds. Chand Bordai will then proceed to tell us how great this poem is, highlighting that this tale might just be a fantasy self-insert, but I digress. Eventually, several of the Rajas join us, and we destroy the clans that refuse to cooperate in defending against the raiders. This doesn't really stop the invading armies, however, and Prithviraj is eventually captured, blinded, and kept as a slave to Muhammad. Ghori happens to be insane, however, and essentially gives a loaded weapon to Prithviraj, who uses it to kill him. Unfortunately, our king is also killed in the aftermath. Back at home, Sanyogita hears of her husband's death, and so she does what any reasonable woman would do, and throws herself into a fire and dies. Fantastic. This is just one of the many campaigns that make up the game, and it's amazing. Campaigns aren't the only aspect, however, and skirmishes also exist. You can play against AI, and they come in 6 difficulties. Everything up to hard ranges from trivial to manageable, but the last 2 difficulty settings can only be defeated by cheesing the AI and going for extreme early aggression. AI in this game doesn't actually get bonus resources or map hacks, and instead is just coded so well that it will be able to multitask with absolute efficiency. Trying to beat them with APM alone will end up with something like this. There is a ton of customizability in skirmishes. You can configure all sorts of settings and make sure the experience is tailored to your preferences. Don't like your starting resources? No problem. Want to set the population limit to 500? Done. Want to make the map not just large, not just gigantic, but ludicrous? They've got you covered. Once you've picked all of that out, you can set the number of players, the teams they belong to, and you can start your match. Of course, we can't mention the skirmish without mentioning multiplayer. If you hate playing against cold hard steel, then try playing against your fellow fleshy compatriots. Multiplayer is alive and well in Age of Empires, which is quite nice considering just about every other game from 1999 is dead. There are metas, however, that you will need to learn to be competitive in multiplayer. The following meta assumes a non-nomad map in which you do the following. On match start, select your town center and press Shift plus Q. Next, pick 2 villagers and double tap Q. Place a house and then select your 3rd villager to do the same. Without delay, highlight your scouts and search your immediate surrounding for resources. Once you've got 7 villagers on food, build a lumber camp and put your next 3 on wood. Keep building villagers, do not stop. Poach a boar once you've got 13 villagers, and then you can branch off. And that's just the opening phase. The game can get complicated, and keeping your town centers producing villagers while minimizing idle time is quite a challenge. I tried it a few times, and while I did see success, it wasn't worth my sanity. What I realized is that I had more fun in ranked when I didn't care about my score than against people at random matches who I had to assume were there to stomp on my tiniest mistakes, and this was very stressful. So keep that in mind when you go into the multiplayer scene. In conclusion, Age of Empires 2 is the game that keeps on giving. It was released ages ago and has managed to survive the onslaught of time. Unlike other studios that attempt to re-release old titles with questionable efforts to modernize, this game has been handled exceptionally well. The spirit and soul have been preserved throughout the years, which is a fantastic feat you don't see often. The gameplay is very fun. This game has remained active for 3 decades for a reason, and is the hallmark for what an RTS should be. There are a ton of maps and scenarios that will keep things fresh and interesting for hundreds of hours, and that's without multiplayer. The multiplayer experience is available for those of you who want a faster pace of gameplay and to test the limits of your keyboard. Sounds and visuals have been improved to match the current year, and the mechanics of the game are surprisingly unique. There aren't that many games that play this way that are as popular or mainstream. I give this game a score equal to the number of civilizations that have ever existed over the number of them that still exist in the current year. It's great, fantastic, and I highly recommend it. So, my beautiful people, I hope 2024 goes well for you. Set your goals high and crush them. Anyways, thanks for watching and have a beautiful day.